running in B4. This thing can eat hay. I just love this second crop. The windrows are very consistent. This is the 5th load today. We got this piece we call below double X, which it's kind of gets more of the afternoon sun, this field. So you get like in here, and this didn't see sun until about an hour or two ago. But there's usually not a lot in here, and there's just grass. You know, sometimes we could leave it for another day, but to come back up here for 20-30 bales sometimes gets a little ridiculous. And tomorrow they're talking more humidity, and when they talk humidity, there's always that chance of a shower, and I don't want to have to be kicking myself tomorrow that I left some hay out here that was almost there. Yeah, so this here wagon, I believe that's an H&S, and with a 10-ton running gear. I'm 57 years old, and I think I was like 6 years old when my dad bought this wagon new from a local implement in our small town. And then a year later he bought another one kind of like it, but my brother's got that one. So this is the one I got from the home farm. I did acquire a few pieces of machinery for working there all those years and all that. It's kind of an interesting thing how old that thing is, and it's doing just what the new one would do. The back of it's going to need some repairing. A lot of the iron just from fatigue, from years and years of the bales cracking up against the back. I mean, that's just the way it is. But the running gear's getting pretty wore out, you know, in the joints and stuff. But probably had the tires all replaced since then. And you know how that goes. But this one's got a real high front on it, so I usually avoid using this one until the end, or in certain places you don't want to use it. So what happens is when this baler goes through a dip, the bale doesn't clear that front. So sometimes I have to stop and let the bale fly out of there before I go completely into the dip with the baler. And sometimes it'll get you. So we got a couple fields like that with all these dips in. 2 of them in this field. We got 2 big humps, you know, big waterways, and you know, good soil, good land and all that. It's just for baling. So the one above the road is a little better. That's about 6 acres. This one's about 7. I gotta watch here so I don't end up losing a bale here, because it's a nuisance. You got to get out and pick it up because it just rolls into the next windrow. And sometimes it times itself out right where you come out of the dip before it ends up hitting. Things are going better than the last 5-6 days ago. We baled and it was humid and sun didn't come out till late, and it was supposed to rain, and it did rain, and the hay would have been not so if we would have left it. You win a lot and you lose a little. I guess that's the way you have to look at it. Coming up on another one of those dips, so I gotta watch it. It's kind of like you're grinding your teeth the whole time doing stuff like this. There's the bale. No hay in the baler, so it's gonna hopefully get through it before it pops out. Oh, barely cleared the rack. So on this farm, they have bale racks. We got those, I think they call them a Minnesota. I got 2 of those I got from my brother-in-law about 10 years ago. He quit baling little squares, so then they got low fronts on them. I think they were built by the prison. I'm not sure. One of them were anyway, but I like those. And they got the wide bottoms, so that Corey running gear, they're an 8-ton. They maybe still make it, that wide bottom, which it does add a lot of support in the hills. Or the wagon mounts, it's still the same width there, but it does give you some more support from sliding and possibly tipping. And we have never tipped the bale rack over yet. I think it's something we always got to keep in mind that it probably can happen. I think more of it is just how full you load them, and you know where you go when they get quite loaded. Like I sometimes have to plan a little bit, bail off some of the steeper areas of the field when the rack has got less in it. Even though the tractor will pull it there, I mean, sometimes you end up tearing up the field because you got so much weight behind you trying to drag along. So with the round baler, somebody was commenting we should have got the big squares because they won't roll down the hill. They're right, but I've seen it happen where big squares start rolling. It's not pretty, but it's steep enough where they get going, they will roll. So here's my philosophy with baling hay as far as bale sizes. The little square bale is by far the best bale to make the best quality hay when you start talking about questionable moisture. Okay, so I gotta get out and go pick this one up. I got one that missed a rack there. Okay, we got that loaded up. When you have something like that, we got to go fetch a bale occasionally. It helps you feel that bale, whether you need to make them tighter or looser, or whether they're fit to be even baling, because you never really know until you have to handle them all. I mean, once you unload and stack them, you know what you got as far as moisture in those bales. There is no question. And you've done this long enough, you do not need a moisture tester, because if you unload, stack, and then of course over time feed that stuff out and remember where you made it and how you made it, it gives you a real good feel in years to come on when the hay is really dry enough to be baling. So typically we like to wait until, you know, rake it up at 11, noon, you know, depending on the day, and then don't start baling to 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, depending on the location of the field in these hills. We got hills we could, you know, they're on top where the sun is out until 8 o'clock in the evening on the right time of the year, but then we got fields and by 4:30, 5 o'clock they can start shading over, and you have to be strategic about taking care of that before then. So anyway, back to the bale, you know, quality. So the little square bale is the most forgiving, so if the moisture's you know, 18, 19, 20%, it's stored correctly in a on edge. Maybe you throw some salt between the layers, things like that. You know, you can do a lot of things, but it will cure out sooner than like a round bale. That would be the second choice. They're never really quite as tight, especially the smaller ones. They can air a little bit more. And the big square bale is the most unforgiving one. You got to have 15% or less moisture, preferably less. That's why it's not very popular around here, because there's maybe a year like this, you might have had 2 days out so far that would have been really appealing to use big square bale as far as getting hay that's going to keep. Because if you're not baling hay that can keep, you know, you're kind of wasting your time really, as far as, you know, a lot of money and stuff is at stake when it's the quality isn't going to stay there. Because typically when you're baling, it's usually your quality's there, it's just isn't going to keep. But this here hay, other than along the edges, I think we're good. Tomorrow they're talking sunny but more humid, maybe not quite as much of a breeze. So I think out of this, oh, we must have a 4-day stretch here of sun. This is probably the better day, as far as I would have to guess. We're going to take advantage of that. So what I can do is I can put you guys out on the baler. Maybe see if I can put you guys in by the knot. Never realized that was the situation. You're able to get a camera back there to watch what's going on as you bale. So you're not, you know, to have to get out. I imagine like the big square balers and the custom operators and stuff in the western states, I got a feeling that can be quite appealing when you're really going against the clock and you got a lot of yield. If the nodder misses one, you're able to see from the tractor seat if the next one is doing the same, instead of stopping and trying to figure, and then diagnosing what's going on. Okay, so we're going to stick you guys out on the baler. See, now there's a little arm that holds it up, but this whole mechanism is your nodder, of course. So this arm here is your length. This here is the bale goes through our chamber and turns here. So when this jumps into this groove, basically trips this, and our gear here, it's engaged to our nodder. Now the nodder makes a revolution. The nodder will make a revolution within a split second, I guess you could say. It has to get it tied before the plunger hits again. And here's our counter. So every time this arm goes up to tie a bale, it will count one. You're able to reset it back to 0, of course, but we just leave it till the end of the year. Sometimes I just write it down from day to day to give us a reference. guys are gonna get a lot of baling videos. Just happen to work out where do some filming. Sometimes it seems like everything happens at once, and even though we might get some filming done, it's maybe one day or two out of the summer. Not this year. Everything is kind of spread out quite a bit because of the rains and that. We're able to. I mean, ideally, I wouldn't mind cutting 6, 8, 10 acres at a time only between me and maybe Owen. That are, you know, we could. It's enough to fill up all the wagons, and we could do it ourselves. But when you start getting past that, you need to unload some and time. And then there's chores to do. It's just trying to do so much at once. It's ridiculous. And where's the guy out? I mean, we do it. We get it. I guess I'm saying we shouldn't have to go like that all the time. So when I make tight turns, if I don't need the 4-wheel, I take it out. It turns better. I don't think a lot of guys realize that. It actually kind of cuts into the sod quite a bit when you make these tight turns. Sometimes I make half the turn with it out. And I know there's like a switch on we pull the switch all the way ahead, we can use our brake and it kicks out the 4-wheel. I don't like to do that all the time because there's times I got to put the brake on to stop and I'm on a really steep slope, and when I do that, that means it's kicking out the front wheel drive. It's kind of made more for like doing tillage. When you're turning around on the end rows, you can just hold the brake just slightly and it kicks out the 4-wheel, so it turns around a little easier. And then when you put your implement back into the dirt, when it needs to pull hard, you let the brake go, of course. Yeah, so the video gets kind of long because we start talking like this, but I guess if you're kind of bored with what I'm trying to explain, just fast forward. I'm a believer in educating. If we're going to do this, you're going to learn from it. And I love the fact to teach people that aren't in this what this really is. Even though you're not actually here, you can get a lot better feel for it and put yourself in our shoes. Tomorrow we bale straw. We'll probably see if we can get a little of that on film. That's always fun. It slips through the baler really, really nice. Always makes it real nice, tight bales. Usually from that 6 acres, probably going to end up with about 3 loads. I think we're going to stack one up real nice and tight and full. That's going to be this wagon I'm wanting to do. Leave it loaded, and we'll put it in the calf barn in the spring. See, so we're done. We're almost done with second crop. Got one field left, but it needs to grow a little bit more, and it won't be such a big deal to have all these wagons empty. And then third crop, we bale some, not very much. Depends on the weather. Maybe 1,000 bales, maybe 500. I don't know. See how you tied it together with baling or barbed wire. You gotta do what you have to do. It's still serving a purpose. Next spring we're gonna have to give this some kind of overhaul.